Siomra
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Collecting Issues, where this week we'll be taking a look at Head Lopper and the Island, or A Plague of Beasts, collecting issues 1 to 4 of the 2017 Image Comics creation by Andrew MacLean and Mike Spicer.
You did it.
Yeah, just about.
Benjamin.
Yeah.
This is a big comic book for us to read.
It's chunky.
It's a chunky monkey of a comic book.
It's a chunky monkey of a comic book. It is. It's huge. It's a big epic. Big epic thing.
Why don't you very briefly tell both me and the listeners what it is?
Well, the titular Head Lopper, Michael, is actually Norgal, who is kind of a sword for hire in a mythical fantasy land. And he travels around with an unusual companion, the head of Agatha the Blue Witch, who's a very evil witch that everybody knows, and they're like, oh, she's a real bad egg.
Yeah,
she's a very sarcastic kind of comedic foil to Norgal, who's a big broody kind of Santa Claus with the gym membership kind of guy. And they travel around and deal with different things. In Head Lopper and the Island, or A Plague of Beasts, they deal with the Black Sorcerer of the Bog, who's a real nasty piece of work that kind of curses a land. It's up to Head Lopper to kind of deal with it.
To sort it out.
Head Lopper kind of wants to do it for the crack, because that's kind of what he does. He's kind of just like, just
goes around lopping off heads.
Yeah, there you go. It's a big fantasy epic. Lots of different monsters, lots of different magic-y kind of elements. Some classic barbarian tropes here and there. It's a fun read for me, Michael. For me, in my opinion.
In your opinion.
In my opinion.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Be quiet for 1 minute.
Okay.
And then tell us. Is this the introduction of the character, or did he exist before this?
So, interestingly...
I said be quiet for 1 minute! No, don't. That's bad podcasting.
Head Lopper initially was an independent comic completely done by Andrew MacLean, drawn and written by Andrew MacLean, with some help from his wife. His wife often joins in and helps him with lettering and things like that. But originally it was independent. It gathered a lot of interest from different publishers. Dark Horse were very interested in it. IDW were very interested in it. He originally did a little bit of work with Dark Horse, but they wanted him to do a 120-page comic, and he said that he would prefer to do a really long project.
120 pages is long.
120 pages is long, but he has a really, as you said, Michael, this is a chunky monkey of a comic.
It's a chunky monkey.
He originally did Apocalyptic Girl with Dark Horse.
Right.
And that brought him to the attention of someone like Image, and Image got in touch with him and said, look, if you want to do a project with us, we'd love to let you go. And apparently, to quote him, he said, yep, absolutely, I've got nothing else on, I don't have any money after this, so yes, please.
Yeah, I'll do a comic for you.
He took the project on, and he says it's a great relationship, because anything he wants to do, Image are like, yeah, grand, off you go, have fun.
So he's not constrained by the usual limits of 22 pages monthly?
No, this is actually a quarterly comic book when it's released in its single issue form.
Right.
Yeah, so you only get one every 3 months, and that's why he does them in 4s. So it's a yearly event, every 3 months.
Oh.
Volume 3 has just dropped last week.
I see.
So it's a very timely thing for us to cover here on the podcast, and not at all a last minute panic decision at the end of last week's episode where we maybe
we haven't thought
something
about
like
this
that. No, we
episode.
haven't done it either, but like that's fine. Look,
Benjamin.
Yeah.
Look, listen, you haven't answered my question though.
Yeah.
Is this the introduction of the character, or is there something before this that would tell you about
the
it?
2 independent runs would be technically your initial introduction to the character, but now the Image series is canon, so yes, it's the initial introduction to the character
Because
within
Ben,
the Imageverse.
I'd never heard of him before.
It's a very cult classic-y indie kind of comic.
And this
vibe.
kind of starts in media res.
Yes, it does.
So I had no idea
you
who...
don't like Michael.
I don't mind, because I felt that it became apparent about halfway through it that you didn't really need to know a backstory. It's quite a self-contained story.
It is.
Other than reading this, I have no idea who Head Lopper is. But
Sure.
he's not really... He's not a character in the story.
No, he's a medium through which the story is told.
Yeah,
I suppose.
he's kind of a force of nature.
Yeah, he's a classic. It's a classic kind of trope with more independent comics where we have our force of nature, especially with mythological comics, Michael. We have our force of nature character that just can't be stopped, and what you really watch is the reaction to that character as we go along. And Head Lopper is definitely one of those.
And the machinations of other characters around him, people trying to get him trying to direct him where they want him to go, or...
One of the interesting things about Head Lopper is he's not necessarily the point of interest for a lot of people. It's what he carries around in the form of Agatha's head, especially in Volume 1. Agatha is incredibly magically powerful.
Yeah.
She is a headless witch, and she's still alive.
No, she's
doesn't
not headless.
Eat, breathe.
bodiless.
She's a bodiless witch. And he carries that head around. She occasionally acts a little bit as a Ghost in the Machine, or not a Ghost in the Machine. What's the other one? Act of God. No.
Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina, thank you. Where she will resolve parts of the plot simply because she's been so powerful all along. But that's built up over the course of the issue.
It's not unearned.
It's not unearned. We don't understand her. Norgal doesn't understand her. And I think one of the interesting things about it is he's very mythological to the people that he comes across, but he doesn't buy into his own reputation at all. They'll often be like, "You're the Head Lopper," and he'd be like, "Norgal is fine."
Norgal, I'm Norgal.
Yeah, you don't have to call me the Head Lopper. It's fine.
Come here to me.
Yeah.
In the previous comics, do you find out whence upon he came upon the head of Agatha the Blue
This
Witch?
is in volume 3. This is actually revealed in the new comic that's been released
so,
this week.
I mean, when you're reading this, you definitely don't need to know.
It's not important to the story overall.
But I didn't know if I needed to know or
you
not.
You don't need to know. Andrew MacLean himself has said that he would love it to go for 9 volumes. He's very ambitious in how he wants to tell this.
9 bloody volumes.
9 volumes. Now, he says that's the big pipe dream. That's the big house, the big ranch. What do you call it?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Anyway, that's his big dream for it. He says he doesn't mind if he doesn't get that many, but that's his big ambition, is for this to go for a long time. He really loves writing and drawing this. I'm very impressed by it as a piece of comic art. I think he has a very distinct drawing style.
Okay.
I think it's been heavily influenced.
Well, let's talk about that first before you go off on a ramble.
Yeah.
What influences did you see? Ben, here's what I saw.
Go on.
I opened it.
Yes.
And on the inside cover, judging by the front cover alone and the inside cover.
Wow, I never even looked at that.
The inside cover has this kind of, what's that diamond harlequin pattern called?
It's a harlequin pattern.
A harlequin pattern with different heads and gross heads.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought Hellboy,
yeah,
Mike Mignola.
Yeah, I think his biggest influence, he seems to bear it unashamedly, is Hellboy. One of the key differences I would argue in this, I think the influence, even from the cover, even looking at the cover, he copies that kind of Mignola framing device of big, heavy black inks being separated by something else. Colour is far more vibrant throughout Head Lopper than it is, and heavy shadow does not necessarily exist within the rest of the comic. It's usually quite shadow-free.
It's quite minimalist, cartoony.
It's
very vibrant.
Strong Adventure Time vibes.
Adventure Time. I was seeing Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack or Adventure Times. This man has clearly been very influenced by Cartoon Network's bill of things. He said himself in an interview that he became very disillusioned with comics right around his 1819s. Before he went to university. He finished university and came back to comic books and was a little bit jaded with all the superhero. He got a strong case of superhero fatigue.
Well, that happens.
And he wanted to find out if comics could do something else. And as it turns out, they can. The style itself is very, very fluid. Great action style for comics. Very exaggerated. Very Samurai Jack. Even in terms of color schemes, if you open it up on a random page,
that's a teal
you can see it there. That's a teal page. Very like the Graveyard episode of Samurai Jack, where he faces off against the ghosts of all the various things. In fact, Michael.
Yes.
In fact, we'll find in terms of influences that Norgal himself, as we go through the issue, faces off in a graveyard against the spirits of the undead warriors. And that, Michael, is almost entirely lifted from Samurai Jack, which hadn't occurred to me, Michael.
Well, lifted has a very
okay, maybe not lifted, but heavily inspired by. Okay. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? There are sequences where he faces off against giants and ghosts.
He finds 3 kind of undead giants with some, not bionic, but some crude replacement
augmentations,
parts. Yeah, and that was very much reminded of Hellboy.
But this came out before the Hellboy movie, where he faces off against those giants.
Wasn't
the
that
giants in the comic?
From the comic,
they're not augmented in the same way, and they're not argumentative with each other in the same way. It's not a similar thing in the comic.
Think this may have inspired that?
I think
this. Or just
no. I think Mike Mignola did his own thing. I think Mike Mignola has been working on various things. The 3 giants in Mike Mignola's series are from myth. There's a famous Middle English tale.
Bergen and Jürgen.
I'm not sure. It could be.
I've made that up.
But it's very believable.
Thank you.
There's a famous Middle English legend about 3 giants that argue with each other. I think that possibly this inspired the Hellboy sequence that we might have seen in the ill-fated Neil Marshall movie.
Not very popular.
Pulled from theatres. Bloody awful.
Benjamin, this is very mythological.
Oh, it's heavily borrowed from, and again, heavily Hellboy influenced. Even what we were talking about when we said Force of Nature.
Yeah.
Things like that. heavily borrowed from the thing. I do think it's a slightly different story to Hellboy in that it's far more rooted in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel this is a rip-off of Hellboy by any stretch of imagination.
But I think it's heavily influenced.
It's his own thing, but my initial feeling was, oh look, it's kind of Hellboyish.
Yeah, no, it absolutely
But then
is.
that was replaced later on. You know what else I saw influence of was some of the, and this is leading into a question, so bear with me for a second.
Yes.
But some of the Irish animation, like The Secret of Kells.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I'm going with this, because it's very heavily influenced by Celtic mythology.
Oh.
Is the gentleman Andrew MacLean, is he from Wee Bonnie, Scotland?
He's not. He's an American, but I would hazard a guess, looking at that second name there, he's either... Well, I would argue that he's probably...
Andy MacLean.
I would actually argue that he's Northern Irish, because
Do you think?
the Northern Irish generation of that name is MAC. If he was Scottish, it would be MC.
Come on now.
Well, we can't be certain, but anyway... I would imagine he probably has Celtic heritage of some sort running through his veins.
Because the place where this is set is the island of Barra.
Barra, which is very close to our own...
Go on.
Are you going to finish this
No,
point?
you finish it.
No, we have the Isle of Iona in Scotland, and then we have the island of... What is this? Oh, which one of the three is it?
I don't know. I don't know where you're going
We've
with
got
Inish.
Inish...
Yeah.
There it is. It's coming back to me.
Yeah.
Inish Man.
Yeah.
Inish Boffin.
Yeah.
Inish Shar... I can't remember the other one.
The Aran Islands?
The Aran Islands. We have the Aran Islands, which are all little islands off the coast of Ireland.
Okay.
And they have their Celtic names. Barra is very close to Gaelic.
Right. Well, it is. There's a lot of Gaelic in this.
Yeah.
Even
he fights a loch. He's in a loch there.
He fights a Loch Ness monster.
Yeah. Love that opening sequence.
I mean, Ben, look, the reason it's Scottish is obviously there's the Castle Aberdeen.
Yes.
It's clear the Sea of the Hebrides.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that he's Scottish. You're probably right there, Michael.
And off to the left of the realm of Barra, there's another place called Morna. And the mountains of Mourne, of course, are famously in Northern Ireland. So
yeah. Look, he's just like,
it's Scotland. It's Scotland if Scotland was detached from England.
From England.
Basically. If Scotland was its own kingdom without any... England to have to deal with.
Look at the Scottish Independent Party. They actually use this as a key example of what we could be again.
Very good.
Make Scotland Barra again.
Yeah, that's very good. And there's a Giant's Causeway. There's a little Giant's Causeway.
There's a whole sequence where he fights weird causeway monsters.
Yeah, manflesh. That's a kind of purple and yellow scene.
I really enjoy how that's done. In terms of colouring, he actually leaves most of the colouring up to the colourist, Mike Spicer. He doesn't. What I mean by that is he gives him a rough idea of how he'd like to start or what colour he has in mind, and then he leaves the colourist to do what they do. Noted misgendered guest on the podcast, Geordie Belair, takes over in Volume 2.
Oh, really?
Who I have misgendered several times. It turns out it's a woman. But I'm, of course, Michael, a committed sexist, and I just don't see that kind of thing.
Yeah, you just don't see sex.
But yeah, so he's very loose with stuff like that. I quite enjoy this, Michael, as a story. It was recommended to me on the basis of being a Hellboy fan.
Oh.
It was sent my way on the recommendation of being a Hellboy fan, and when I picked it up, I quite liked it. I enjoy the minimalism, I enjoy the storytelling, but as you pointed out, Michael, it hadn't even occurred to me, Michael, the Samurai Jack influences in this. I'm a huge Samurai Jack fan, so it's no wonder.
It starts quite episodic.
Yes, it is very episodic. Tying themes together much later.
Yeah. And when I picked it up, Ben, to be honest, I wasn't blown away by the first issue.
That's okay, Michael.
It didn't blow. It's a big, burly man. He looks a bit like the dad from Brave.
He does, actually. Yeah.
And it's clearly set in a kind of Scotlandy place, and it's a big, burly man. There's a touch of the Conans about him.
Very, very Conan-y.
The strong, silent type.
Yes.
And he fights a sea monster, and he kills the sea monster, and then there's a lot of anti-religion in this.
Yeah.
The old lads from the church. Bad bunch of blokes.
Right pack of pricks.
Yeah.
Pack of pricks.
Bad lads.
Yeah, they're not great. They're doing an now slave trade.
Yeah.
They're doing an now, surely you'll do this for free in the service of the Lord.
And I, but a poor man of the cloth.
Poor man of the cloth. Yeah, there's a little bit of... Is there rape connotation in there?
There's certainly virgin sacrifices as
are
well.
they diddling the virgins before they sacrifice them? What's going on?
Because the things say make sure they're virgins this time.
Give it an old check there, and if a priest checks, that wouldn't sully anything because it's a holy man.
No, and there's a lot of satisfaction in the priests getting their comeuppance.
Yeah, they get some comeuppance as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot aimed against mystery and superstition in general.
Right.
Norgal is no fan of it at all. He says, your magic is weak.
Steel is stronger than magic.
Steel is stronger than magic is the mantra that he kind of lives by. Only that's not exactly true.
Is it true
in the
Norgal?
world of Barra? It's not at all. He certainly wouldn't succeed. And spoilers for the issue, which you really should have read if you're listening to the podcast.
This is for people who've read it. What are you doing here?
Get out of here. Go
You
pick up the
specifically.
comic. What I really, magic trumps Norgal by the end. It's only through Agatha's intervention that he's able to defeat the Black Sorcerer.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Would he not have found a way?
He might have
chopped off all the heads.
We don't know. We don't know because she does Deus Ex Machina the crap out at the end of the issue. I get really strong in terms of like the political intrigue and stuff like that. There's a lot of layers going on in Barra. There's a lot of corruption, a lot of family lines that are being upheld. We were looking at Lulok, who's kind of a Sheriff of Nottingham style character.
Is that the vibe you got from?
He's certainly a very confused character.
Lulok is a very Celtic mythology influenced name, isn't it?
Lulok, yeah. I think it's probably Lulok,
yeah.
Which is heavily Celtic. I think he's supposed to be an inversion maybe of Lug, who's the great son of Celtic gods. He's kind of the golden boy, and Lulok is the exact opposite. He's the dark son of kind of a family line and stuff like that.
How does everyone not realise he's a baddie? Look at him.
Look at the state of Lulok.
Look at the state
he's
of him.
bloody purple.
With his heavy brow.
It's just reeks of spoiled rotten apples and barrels kind of vibes. Yeah, but
although
look,
he does get a tragic backstory, and it does all turn out to be, the chickens have come home to roost.
Yeah, a little bit. That's what I mean. It's interesting to see those long lineage kind of sins of the father, or rather sins of a king, kind of come back and haunt things. I enjoy the kind of play on the child king vibe, where the woman has to sit her son, who is effectively the king, on her knee and make him give judgments out to the island of Barra. Terrible system for monarchy.
Terrible, but I think quite common.
Yeah, quite at that time anyway. Although, looking at Prince William.
He's a way off being king.
He's never going to be king. None of them are going to be kings, Michael. The monarchy's about two
Look,
breaths
Ben,
away in a scandal.
What is this? The bloody monarchy hour? We're
Anti-monarchy hour, Michael.
Talking about bloody comic books.
I quite enjoy this comic. It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn. He enjoys a long, rambling issue. He's very sparing with the information that we're given. But he's good at building tension. I was intrigued to see how it ends. And I've picked up Volume 2 and have ordered Volume 3 now as we speak. I'm a fan of the comic. I don't know how you feel about it, Michael.
I'll tell you about my journey, Ben, my hero's journey. I sat down and I read approximately what I thought was the first issue. Now, it turns out I was probably wrong, because I thought this was a collection of about 10 issues. But that just goes to show you that's my own bloody prejudices.
It's comic prejudice, Michael.
Yeah.
You have assumed
exactly
it's a comic of such girth, Michael.
So I assumed that when he finished dealing with the bloody sea monster, that was the end of the first issue. Nope. But obviously it wasn't.
Nope.
It was, though, because look, there's a bloody break in between them.
There is. It's true.
Are there breaks in between the
I
issues?
think that was maybe a pilot issue, perhaps.
Right.
Well, again, they're quarterly, Michael. So, they're very few and far between.
Yeah. Well, anyway, look, I read the first issue and I thought, that's pretty good. It's all right. A nice little one-off comic.
Yes.
I've read quite a few comics set in this kind of barbarian olden times recently. Yeah. And a lot of them kind of start similarly with the hero facing off against a monster. So, I mean, the art style is good. I really enjoyed the art.
Yes.
There was a lot of onomatopoeia,
which was nice.
I called it onomatopoeia the comic in my head. I was a little, and honestly, maybe it's my lack of intelligence, but I was a little bit distracted by the sounds in my head going boing, boing, fluff, chop.
It's not a lack of intelligence, Michael. It's your childlike wonder.
I think I was mouthing them.
It's your childlike wonder.
I think I was mouthing
that's probably the way it's intended to be read, Michael. Like, it's a choice, and it's fun to.
There's a lot of onomatopoeia. It does. It does die down a bit. Actually, I noticed. And then
he was hand lettering all that, and it was taking him about 4 hours extra.
Splish, bosh,
shish. The reason for that is it was taking him 4 hours an issue to finish the lettering in a hand lettering style.
Okay.
His wife is now the letterer.
Snitch.
His wife is now the letterer for most things.
And then Agatha the Blue Witch starts providing some of the onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
When she's going, jump, jump, ox leap.
One of my favourite sequences in this comic is the conversation she has with the skull in the strange kind of torture chamber.
I was going to get to that in a minute.
Go on.
So initially, Ben, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't eager to sit down and read through the whole thing.
Okay.
I thought this is something I'll read bit by bit over a couple of weeks because they're unconnected stories of a barbarian going on adventures.
Nope.
And I got about halfway through it, Ben, and then I by the time I realised I was halfway through it, I'd finished it.
Oh, good.
Because it all really
picks up some steam.
I don't think picks up some steam is a fair way to say it, because it's better than just picking up steam. It ties together.
It does.
And it might be part of the kind of in media res thing where you're going, what's going on here? What's this? Who's this guy? Who's this Lug-Luck? He looks like a bit of a prick. And then it all starts tying together. You see the flashbacks, and you're like, what's this now?
It's whose story is
it's
this?
Lug-Luck. We actually learn more about Lug-Luck, the character.
Lug-Luck.
No, I'm saying Lug-Luck. I
Lug-Luck?
know I'm saying it wrong.
For the ladies and gentlemen at home who you didn't clarify that for, it's not a new character.
Yeah, no, it's Lug-Luck, the bad egg. We learn a lot more about Lug-Luck as a character than we do about Head Lopper as a character. Lug-Luck is...
Force of nature, baby.
Lug-Luck is the most developed character in the bloody thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually quite a good start to finish story. It doesn't need more.
Oh, I'm so glad, Michael. You had me worried at the start
I
of this
know,
podcast.
it was bloody, I didn't know.
Michael was winding me up at the start going, this was it. Oh, I'm gonna give you a hard time on this podcast.
No, but it is. It's very, very good. It's not instantly apparent how good it is what I would say.
I think for a one-man scripted and written, drawn gig,
yeah,
some of the best I've seen. Very much in the tradition of Mike Mignola. I wouldn't be surprised if you went to Andrew MacLean's house and saw a little Mike Mignola shrine.
Yeah, some of his hair.
It wouldn't shock me. What little he has left, yes.
Is Mike Mignola a bald man?
He's a balding man.
Oh no, Mike! I know what
he's got plenty of money, Michael. You don't have to feel sorry for him.
Does he?
Fine.
He
makes a lot of he makes a lot of money off
licensing.
Licensing. There's a series of beers out in America using his characters. Craft beers that are very popular. The movies pay quite a bit, I think, every time they...
Is there a Head Lopper action figure I could purchase?
I think there probably is. I'll try and find it.
Ben, here's a question for you, and I know you haven't researched this, so I'm springing it on you a little bit.
Go on.
How heavily based on mythology is this?
So it's using tropes from mythology far more than... Actual mythology. I think it also borrows quite heavily from the Victorian tropes that we've seen of fictional worlds.
Go on.
Your John Carter of Mars,
right.
Your Lord of the Rings isn't Victorian, I know, but your H. Rider Haggard kind of gigs. In terms of the Bat People,
yeah,
that's just a classic fantasy trope that came from your kind of Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Bat People of the Amazon, things like that.
The Bat People of the Lower Hebrides.
The real Victorian era kind of speciesism kind of gig. That kind of thing is all there. The sorcerer tropes we find, the island trope, the concept of a sorcerer being trapped in an island is straight from King Arthur.
Right.
Except it's an inversion of that again. The Lady of the Lake is trapped in one lake in particular. And she's bound to that lake and things like that. So we've seen that trope a million times in things like King Arthur and things like that. It's very, as you pointed out, Scottish English based in this run. There's a little bit of African mythology that creeps in there. A
little bit.
With the female protagonist that enters in. She becomes much more popular in issues 2. And he kind of explores different mythologies as he goes along. But this one is centrally British Isles. Or Scotland. In what it does as we go along. Lulloch is a traditional barbarian kind of character. Lulloch is a traditional kind of Sheriff of Nottingham style character that we spoke about.
The evil steward.
The corrupt steward. Yeah, exactly.
You always have them.
We've got some Robin Hood stuff going on.
Do we?
That's what I mean in the evil steward sense.
The evil steward, okay.
We have Nim, who's the bizarre little... tricksy leprechaun style character. Yeah. He's kind of a pixie. Yeah. And the mischief of that kind of thing we've seen before in other things that we've covered here in the podcast. He's like a Spriggan or a pixie or a little prick, basically.
Spridgen.
What is Spridgen?
It's pronounced Spridgen.
Yeah, the witch that he carries around, a big evil witch on a mountain, is a classic kind of thing. She's actually goblin-based, which we find out in Volume 3.
Oh, Ben!
It doesn't matter,
You don't
Michael.
spoil things based on future volumes. That's one of the conduits.
Heavily British, Irish, Scottish, Welsh stuff.
Every now and then there's an oddly modern twist, which is where I was to go. For example, the two green witches.
Yes, the strange creatures
creatures who try and kidnap him and feed him to a weird
scorpion,
very adventure-timey scorpion.
Yeah, but it's also like straight out of Conan from the 80s. Like it's a real like Ray Harryhausen kind of like.
I don't know if Ray Harryhausen would have such a smiley face on the tail, though.
It was bizarre, wasn't it? It's really twisted.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that sequence, but I distinctly remember reading it and going, "What is this?
What's this thing?
Where did this come from?
Somebody killed that thing."
It's very grotesque.
But those two sisters have an addiction problem.
Yeah.
And they've turned to evil, essentially,
to feed their
addiction problem, because one of them's addicted to drugs.
Yeah, it's
magic pixie drugs.
But it's just meth.
Yeah,
it's just meth. They smoke it through a pipe, Michael.
They smoke it through a pipe, and then they disappear. They'll probably be back. Also, there's some, especially from Agatha the Blue Witch, there's some very modern dialogue.
She's a very modern creature, but I mean, Agatha is, I think, the comedic relief all throughout. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things that Andrew MacLean said about this is that he always has a little word file of jokes that he would give to Agatha. And what he originally wanted to do was make a series like little mini comics of Agatha just having conversations with things or with herself. Yeah. Because she kind of narrates Norgal's life in a weird way. He doesn't say a lot. And she's very modern. But she's placed as this bizarre creature that nobody understands. Mm-hmm. We're not really sure why Agatha exists as she does. It's very unclear how powerful she is, what exactly she is, and she's kind of like a moxie 1950s.
There's some of that
kind
to
of,
yeah.
And he said that this word file that he keeps, he realized that he'd never have time to make this miniseries. So what he does now is, if he doesn't think the issue has enough humor in it or something like that, he'll go to the word file, he'll pick something out, and he'll stick it in the comic.
Stick in a little scene.
As I said earlier, she has this great interaction with a skull, where she just talks to him and basically talks the ear off the poor skull.
Yeah.
And we think it's just a skull until there's a little end credit joke.
Stinger,
and it turns out
hurtful.
He talks, he just says hurtful.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. It's a great little comic. I really enjoy it. I think, again, probably the humor that Andrew MacLean has found there is some of the humor that we would see in Hellboy, where Hellboy makes those comments, but he's given that to Agatha the Blue Witch. I really enjoyed the comic, Michael. I think it's a very well put together piece. It's heavily influenced by several things that we've looked at over the years, but it's a nice distilling of, I think, some of the things that you and I really enjoy about standalone comics or in-world comics and fantasy especially. It's pretty great, Michael.
Even a bit of Lovecraftian horror in the summoning of the monster from the deep and the sacrifices of the virgins and the whatnot.
Yes, there is some Lovecraftian elements. They pop up again, Michael. You'll enjoy it. I'll give
Don't you bloody spoil it!
I'll give you a land.
Leap across this table. I will ox leap across this table and sever your head from your body.
Michael, settle down. Jesus.
I wonder, is this sword magic?
What sword magic?
Does he have a magic sword, or is it just a normal sword?
I don't think he does. I think he's just a lopper of heads.
He's just a normal sword.
I think he can just do it whatever you give him.
Just chop off someone's head. Yeah. Ben, if people like this, what else should they read?
I think one of the things that we've waxed
watch or see.
Well, we've covered a couple of them here already. Hellboy is your obvious choice, Michael. Check him out. If you like the episodic nature of the first couple of issues in this, then The Chain Coffin and Weird Tales would be a nice little collection of Hellboy to pick up if you're not familiar with the character, if you want to jump in. Weird Tales is a great little collection it's a little anthology of one-shots that Hellboy has done over the years. If you enjoy the longer epic of Hellboy, get in there on the ground floor. Go do your Seeds of Destruction. If you're not interested in Nazis and you want to focus on some more Arthurian folklore, go for the Wild Hunt from Hellboy. Yeah. Or check out the little mini-series that he did called Kozuchai the Deathless, where he looks at one of the characters that pops up. It's a little Baba Yaga epic that crawls through from the Hellboy universe. If you enjoy the bizarre character design, the nice colour palette, Samurai Jack's your man. Check out the original Cartoon Network Samurai Jack series. Don't go for the Adult Swim thing. Watch the first 3 seasons. watch the first 4 seasons and then go for season 5 of Samurai Jack, because you don't want to jump into Adult Swim without seeing the original first.
Good advice, Ben.
If you're into a more comic booky thing, more mainstreamy, the Conan the Barbarian series from Marvel Comics at the moment. Is it Marvel?
Yeah, it is Marvel. It's spectacular.
By Jeff Lemire. Bloody fantastic.
Yeah,
bloody fantastic.
The best comic on the shelves, in my opinion.
Possibly. And,
it shares some themes with this, of a wandering barbarian going against some sort of demonic, Lovecraftian almost force.
Bloody great. If you're into the minimalist style that he's done, Andrew MacLean's other work, Apocalyptic Girl for Dark Horse, is great. It's a lovely little comic. To get into. How about yourself, Michael? Anything you would pitch?
I was going to say Conan. I was going to say Samurai Jack. I was going to say, you stole a lot of my thunder there.
Awesome.
I was going to say... Yeah, that was pretty much it. Throughout reading this, I always had a funny feeling in the back of my head that I've seen a kind of similar character dynamic with the strong and silent type, with a kind of mouthy prisoner kind of character. I thought I'd seen that somewhere before. Maybe I haven't, and this is just so good that it one of those things that makes you go, oh, this is like
it's just a great dynamic.
But it's just a very good dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone else might be able to point out if there's been a similar dynamic before where one of the characters...
Let us know, ladies and gentlemen, which brings us to the wrap up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do you want to keep going?
No.
I thought you were...
I was finished.
I thought you were segueing.
Oh, go on then.
I'm after hurting Michael's feelings, ladies and gentlemen. If you or anyone you know knows how I could maybe make it up to Michael, you can leave us a comment down below. Have you read Head Lopper? Do you enjoy the meaty, chunky nature of such a hefty tome? Michael touched his nipples while I said that. It made me very uncomfortable.
Yes, I did.
Do you have anything else that reminds you of, like Michael said? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? What did you take from this lovely hefty tome? Andrew MacLean gave us a like on our Instagram, and he gave us a little comment the last time that we pitched it. Here's hoping he does it again. Hi Andrew, if you're listening, thanks for making a great comic. It's bloody good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the ones that you should definitely support. Go out and buy it in physical form. It's a beautiful book. It has a lot of concept sketches and fan art at the back.
It's red.
It's really nicely put together, and it's quite reasonably priced, as are all Image comics, because Image do great comics.
Ben, this podcast isn't sponsored by Image Comics.
Oh, if I have my way, Michael, if I have my way. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you thought of it down below. If you have any suggestions for comics that you'd like to see covered on Galactic Issues, because we just don't plan this one as well as we don't, do we? But check out our other episodes if you want to hear more, and let us know what we should be covering next.
I would like to talk about the first volume of the new Jeff Lemire Conan soon.
In that
but
case,
maybe not next week, because we don't want to do two barbarians in a row.
We want to do two barbarians in a row.
Talking about the same things.
Little Barbarians all in a row is a little known Eagle song.
What did we talk about last time?
Sarah.
Oh yeah, so we went war. We might do a superhero.
Head Lopper. We're going to have to do a superhero at some point, Michael. Yeah. So we'll look up a good superhero.
Yeah, we'll look up or a bad one. Let's do a real bad one again.
Bad superhero comic like
Bloodshot.
Bloodshot has been rebooted again, by the way.
Very good.
In an interesting twist of fate. That's it from us for this week, guys. Bye.
You have to tell the website.
Oh, sorry. Seomrabeag.com. SEOMRABEAG.com.
Means Tiny Room in Irish.
You can get in touch with us and keep in touch with all the content that we do, because we have another podcast called Michael and Benjamin's Podcast, where we cover all things pop culture.
Comes out every Monday.
Bye.